Okay, my friends, before I start, this is strictly research. I'm not giving any advice to take anything or do anything. They're trying to understand immunity. Why do some people get sick and other people don't get sick? They're exposed to the exact same thing. This group gets sick. These people, they can be in there all day long. Never get sick. Why? And sickness is an invasion. All right, you think it over now. Sickness isn't just something you don't feel good. Something is invading you. Something is causing your systems to react. And the reaction is because there's something trying to invade it. And if you can react enough quickly, you will defend yourself and you'll be fine and you'll just go on with your life. If you can't defend yourself, your case is closed. Okay, my outstanding friends, prepare yourself. I've been talking about fascia for years now, and I discovered this fascia system when I was studying the mud fossils. And this is a mud fossil right here, and this is fascia. This is the new, meet your interstitium, a newfound organ. Well, this is also called interstitium, and I'm going to show you, it's the biggest thing in medicine right now. It's huge, absolutely huge. It's been overlooked forever. And now all of a sudden you say, wow, this is really serious. And I'm going to show you that it's coming out day after day about the fascia. Okay, get ready for the magical mystery tour. This is from 11 of 2015 about my paper, Fascia Facilitated Fossilization. Well, the whole thing centered around fascia. And I point to all of the different things why it created the mud fossils, which were the rocks. They're literally pieces of meat and bones and lungs and organs and fascia and everything. And I started understanding fascia, and nobody else did. Here's what I had to say back then in this paper. Fascia was thought to be mere packing material, virtually inert. They used to cut it and throw it away. It has long been ignored as a subject of research. Recently, however, there has been new equipment allows viewing of fascia as it does its job. Once again, as in many experiments, there was totally unexpected results. And it's totally unexpected how I was able to see these things. And I have been the only one able to see these things. And I will show you, and nobody else has ever seen these things unless you have been with me. I've been showing them here and there for the last 10 years. Now let's go see what it is. It's the fluid-filled fabric network. Instantly reconfigures itself. It's additional to your blood. This is not in your blood system whatsoever. It's another layer, and I'll show you that right now. Okay, my friends, you are on a ride of your life. We're going to be looking at interstitium, and we're going to actually look at it. But before we do, we have to understand what interstitium is and membranes and the different layers of membrane, this is all fascia, actually. Okay, my outstanding friends, get ready. Another shocker du jour. We're going to be looking at lymph nodes and the circulatory system. And why are these lymph nodes located where they are? And what does a lymph node actually look like? And what does a lymph node actually do? And what is lymph fluid? And how does it flow through the body? And how does it interact with mucosal linings and what they now call an interstitium, which is a fluid-filled network that coats everything in your body. Every single fiber in your body, every single organ, every single muscle and tendon is separated by a membrane. And a membrane is literally fascia. Some fascia is specialized, some fascia is just normal type of fascia that's through the body. But now they realize it's extremely important. Never even was it considered until 2018, when finally the paper was written that was accepted. I wrote my paper in 2015, but I'm nobody, and it didn't go anywhere. But eventually a paper was written by a guy named Neil Tice, Dr. Neil Tice, New York University, which basically was similar, basically almost exactly what I had. But they finally accepted it because he was a doctor. Now, he actually had a hard time. I think he presented it 5 or 8 times, and nobody would publish it until finally he did get it published, and now it's considered possibly the largest organ in the body. Now, in addition to that, I found another bit and piece, which is the spurlock, which is up here above. And that is, because I do from the soft tissue preservation, which is exceptional preservation, as Yale says. Look up their paper, exceptional soft tissue preservation. They call it Edicara biota. It's mud fossils. And that's how I learned all about this. But I will show you some photography now about the human body that is not understood by the doctors. And they should be looking at this to gain some insight how these organs actually do work. Because I could show them actually functioning as a system and how they work. I'll show you that right now. Okay, so what will I show you? Well, every organ in your body, as I said, is coated with some kind of like a rubber bag, and then it tabs into the next organ or into your body proper solidly. Now, you have vein and artery blood, and this is the structure. You got all kind of blood vessels, which I will show you, and then in addition to that, these little black spots are what's called lymph nodes. And what does a lymph node do? Well, it takes out the trash. It collects up all the nasty stuff in your body that's attacking you and filters it out and cleans it up and sends it back into that system. And this is where the lymph fluids flow. And I'm going to show you those fluids. I'm going to show you as much as I can about it, and I can show you a lot about it. All right, this is basically what we're going to be looking at. I showed you those little black balls. That's what these look like. And here's what they look like inside. They got all these little entryways going into these big bumps. And these bumps are supposed to clean up the nasty stuff coming in and then send it back out. You see the valves going this way? And these valves go in. So you got the bad stuff coming in through these valves, and it filtrates all the way through around here. And then these clean it all up and send it out through these valves back into recirculation. Now, this coating here is what they're calling an interstitium now, with a fluid-filled highway, which separates all of this stuff from the rest of the world. And everything has its own membrane. And these have their own types of plumbing. You see, you got artery, vein, and lymph. These have valves. They can only go one direction because they're used. They're either coming in bad and going out good, or coming in bad and then ended up going through the artery. But the artery has no restrictions. The artery goes that way, this way, upside down, around, circle. It doesn't matter. The vein goes one direction, the blood, and the lymph goes one direction, the lymph. So let's take a look at one of those lymph nodes in actual being destroyed by toxins. Remember I showed you there was a whole batch of lymph nodes in a row there? Let me just go back and show you that. Well, the body proper would be here. You see how there's a bunch of lymph nodes right in a row? Boom, 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 boom. Same thing down here. They follow where there's a lot of blood flow because they want to pull out the nasty stuff. You follow me? They want to pull out the nasty stuff. But if they become overwhelmed, it will kill them. That's what lymph cancer is, basically. But they can also be overwhelmed by a toxin. And in this case, we're going to have them being overwhelmed by a toxin. All right, so I'll show you that happening. And I'll show you how veins and arteries work, and capillaries. This is photography unknown to medical science. All right, before we get into the fascia, here's the story with fascia. It's the connective tissue that encases muscles, organs, nerves. Everything in your body is surrounded by fascia. It was historically overlooked until I started looking into it. That's the truth. This is not bragging if it's true, but it's true. And when I started looking into it, they called it fuzz. They would cut it out and throw it away. They said it had no purpose other than packing material. Look, right here it says it. This is in anatomical dissection practices. In dissection, where they do an autopsies, fascia was usually cut away, basically thrown away, to provide a clearer view of muscles and organs, leading to the impression it was unimportant. The practice minimized fascia's visibility in textbooks and the anatomical models. They didn't talk about it at all. Its status as a background tissue, it was just totally unimportant. You see, this just came out moments ago. Common mucosal system and immunity. Mucosal system is the fascia, all right, and immunity. And this guy, Dr. John Campbell's talking about it, and it's exactly what I've been talking about. Okay, like I say, this just came out minutes ago. And this is Dr. John Campbell, 3.14 million subscribers. The common mucosal immune system. That is the fluid-filled highway, the fluid-filled network that I described in the fascia. This is the common mucosal immune system. Down here it says a central unifying factor to this mucosal immune microbiome, which is where the bacteria comes from, protection system. And then they give it a MIMIPS. Is the idea that a single set of gut-associated lymphoid tissues, characterized by specialized M cells, which are these mucosal cells apparently, samples appropriate microbiome to generate global mucosal immune defense. Exactly. The microbiome creates the enzymes, which are the ribosomes. And I'm going to show you this in a little bit of detail. Very simple. Don't get upset. It's very simple and easy to understand. But now they are starting to understand it. And here's what he's talking about right here. This is the mucosa. Well, it could be skin. It could be the coating of an organ. It could be the membrane around a bone. It could be the fascia around flesh. Controlling inflammations. Inflammation, what is inflammation? That was a good thing to pop up there. Inflammation just means that you're coming in to attack the attackers. Now, inflammation is a good thing, but it should only last a very short time. It depends on how much invasion you got. A little bit of invasion, you're not going to get much inflammation. You're just going to kill the guys and everybody's going to go home and have a nice day. However, if you get something nasty down inside here, you're going to get some serious inflammation, because you're going to be sending all your troops over here and they are just going to be fighting like crazy. And then the lymph takes that destructive tissue and works it and sends it to the lymph nodes. And I can show you this actually happening, where you the mucosal fluids, these fluid-filled compartments dump out, and they send their fluids over to attack the attackers and take them over to the lymph nodes to get rid of them. And sometimes they get overwhelmed and they die. And that's the case I'm going to be showing you right now. Okay, here's another one. This is from December 2023, about a year ago. At this moment, a global revolution in anatomical research is underway, fundamentally changing our understanding of the human body. Yes. This revolution centers around fascia, a network of connective tissues without beginning or end, enveloping everything in the body, from muscles and bones to organs and cells, and to the nerves. Because there's mental illness is involved with this too. Fascia just a few years ago was not considered insignificant, classified in 2017 finally as the body's largest and perhaps most vital organ. Newfound insight has ignited a flurry of discoveries that are beginning to challenge our conventional beliefs about the human body and offer new solutions for issues such as back pain, neck problems, and even mental health. Leading the research are experts from countries including Italy, Germany, and USA, but it is in Sweden where we find the world's leading pioneers in fascia treatment. Well, I think I'm one of the leading pioneers in fascia, understanding fascia. That's not bragging, it's just true. I wrote the paper in 2015. I was the first one to really look into it. All right, pay attention to this. This is the interstitium layer right here, which is literally the membrane. And so is this, and so is that. So let's remember, this is the flesh is gone, the skin is gone, whatever. You're down to the membrane. And this is where the membrane exists. That right there is a membrane. That's the meat right underneath it. This is a rock. That is a membrane coating the meat underneath, whatever that happens to be. Now, it could be muscle, it could be tendon, it could be organs, whatever. This is a rip and a tear of the interstitium. These are sports injuries. I primarily look at those kind of photographs to see what's going on in the body. Now, this, as you can see, is the same sort of stuff as this. And that little flap right there is the latch that latches this body part into the next body part, and so is this. I call it a spur lock. Nobody knows about this right now. Medicine does not know about this, and they also don't know about the transfer of fluids. And the reason that there's so many cancers, there's over 100 cancers, and every one of them relates to a type of tissue or an organ. And that's because every organ is encased in its own types of fluids. And if that fluid isn't correct, you get penetration. You go right through this stuff here, and you're living inside the flesh that you're not supposed to get to. All right, once they get down here, this stuff here is no problem. You cut this all day long. Just life does that. But once you get through there, then you call on these troops to come and kill the guys that are trying to invade. If there's nobody coming, you get invaded. Then you get all festery and nasty and puffy and everything. And if there's nothing still comes to save you, you just wither away. And inside your body, deep inside, where your organs are, they will get invaded through here if there's no, troops in here to fight back. So inside your membranes, like this is a lung, and it's been DNA tested. This is an actual human lung. And DNA was taken out of here and sent off, a sample was taken out of here, very carefully done, scrupulously done, sent off to be tested, and it came back as 100% excellent quality human DNA. And it died in a flood. And it's flat like that because it's died flat like that. And there was a time when this type of preservation was pretty common. And Yale also agrees with that. It's called exceptional preservation here. All right, this is the Eticarta biota, they call it. Exceptional preservation of soft body creatures promoted by silica-rich oceans. Everything, all this stuff I presented years ago. I wrote the paper on this and about the preservation in 2015. Yale's paper is 2016, basically the same paper. I presented all my stuff to Derek Briggs at Yale. So anyway, that goes back to when I originally put out my paper on fascia. I couldn't get anybody to pay attention. And I couldn't get anybody to pay attention about the mud fossils either, because it went against everything they said. It changes everything about our history, about the past, about the ages, about this, everything's changed now. And they can't accept it. And that's why Yale would not just dismissed everything and sort of hid out until NASA gave them a bunch of money, and then they agreed, yes, this does happen. All right, so why did I get so interested in fascia? The reason is I found it on all my mud fossils. This is a human lung. I think I already showed it to you. This is what's called pleurer. It's a special type of fascia, and that's flat because it died in a flood. And I know the reason is it was boiled, literally boiled out of the body of a creature. And MIT just admitted, they said, yes, the ocean's boiled. They realized this. And this is a bone, and it is also covered with fascia. And I can actually see where the fascia connects together. You see that little, you see these little, like that right there? That's where the fascia connects together, and that little spot right there is where it locks. And as I call it, a spur lock. Wherever fascia meets another organ or even itself and surrounds and attaches and locks, it has a bunch of little balls and it slams in hard. Now, this is right. I have this right here, this rock. It's nothing but meat with fascia on it. You see this? I got it in a microscope right now. I can show you. Well, I will show you. That little tab is the tab that I talk about, and that tab is this tab. And right now, it's not understood. Now, the other thing that's not understood is there's fluids that flow from this bag, which is its own separate type of fluids, I'm almost certain, into the next bag, which has its own chemistry. So if the chemistry here is good, this organ's not going to get invaded. If the chemistry is bad, that organ will get invaded, and then you'll have lung cancer, whatever the organ is, because its own special chemistry isn't working. That's the only way you're going to get invaded. If the chemistry's working and that interstitium layer is working, it's not going to get through to you. You're going to be protected. And if it does get through, because you're going to get cuts that go way down deep into here. There's all kind of bacteria going to get into there. It's just going to happen. That's life. You get deep cuts. What saves you from that? This cuts off the new invaders. This says nobody else gets through here. And we're going to go down here and kill all those ones that did get through. And that's what happens. But you have to have the right chemistry in that layer. This is what all the research indicates. And I'm just a researcher. I'm not telling you to take anything or do anything. Okay, my friends, what am I going to be showing you? I'm going to be showing you the fluid-filled highway, and then the tissue that is in your body, and you can't see it here, but there's going to be all kinds of blood veins and arteries and capillaries, and then you're going to see the lymph system, and you can't see it in this picture, but everywhere there is in your entire body is this fluid-filled network. I call it a giant fluid-filled network. This one big system, and all of those fluids go. Now, at this point in time, in 2015, when I wrote my paper about it, I didn't realize they were probably different chemistry. Now I'm almost certain of it. That's why there's so many different cancers. If you get invaded in this type of chemistry, you're going to get lung cancer. So what has to happen in the pleura? In the pleura, you have to be able to kill the guys that are trying to come through. And some people get sick and some people don't. All these influenzas and COVID and all that stuff, some people, they were fine. Other people got sick. The ones that got sick and stayed sick, long COVID they call it, could not fight back. And they never could fight back because they didn't have the correct bacteria to create the enzymes. All right, now what it is, I don't know what that bacteria is. I don't know what the enzymes are. But I do know that if you cannot create the enzyme to make those things click instantly, enzymes work millions of times faster than if you had to just let this fester. So think about this. Inside comes in here, this really nasty stuff. Your enzymes come, boop, done, case closed, you're good. Well, if there's no enzymes coming, it gets in here and it just festers forever until you get worse and worse and worse and worse. Something in there, it has to be, the chemistry has to be right. So let's take a look at something right now. I'm going to show you this so close that you just can't even believe it. Because all that's through here, there's blood vessels and all of that stuff. I'm going to show it to you right now. And then I'm going to show you this, fluids attacking an invasive chemistry. And then I'm going to show you the lymph nodes being killed. Okay, my friends, this is from my paper back in 2015 about fascia-facilitated fossilization. And I showed all of this very carefully, in detail on my videos, but this was, that I was being, people thought I was crazy. I said, when I try to explain, I feel like a doctor with a patient has glazed eyes. Unless you're a medical person, you may never even have heard of fascia. So what is it? It's a coating on every fiber of your entire cellular structure, the web of life. It's everything. In ancient times, it was called tunica, a cloak. Fascia has a job to do. It protects and separates tissues, and it does it well during your lifetime if the chemistry is correct. guess what? If you die and are buried quickly and stay wet and compacted in fine mud, the fascia does not know you're even dead, and it keeps protecting you. It doesn't even, seriously, it's still the membrane, and it transports things in and out through that membrane. But instead of feeding things in there, they become stable, and that's what caused the mud fossils to turn into completely, totally exact copies of what they were when they were alive, even colors and everything. The metals in there and the fibers and the whole 9 yards. And I mean, some of them are just absolutely stunning. But they did transition. It's called nucleophilic invasion and substitution. Anyway, it causes the mud fossils. Mud fossils, exact copies of the original creature separated on the fascia planes, the fascia lines, and the skin separation planes. Fascia separates every single cell from its neighbor in life and death. Fascia protects every bit of you from invasion. And this is the part about the invasion, including a complete fabric bag that is the skin on your body. This is nothing more than a separation from the rest of the world into your body. Now, it's a fabric bag, it's your skin. Your skin is not just one fabric either. There's different types of thin skin and tough skin and grip skin. All fascia is made of collagens, keragens. These are the fabrics. This is a fabric bag. Now this is tough. This is plural, and it's a whole different, and I'll show you in a second about that. Now I said all fascia is made of collagens, keragens, elastins, which are elastins, and a sheet that wraps everything individually and then comes together as one giant system, which is what they call an interstitium now. There are 20 types of collagens and keragens. I think there's over that many, 28 I think. Some protect from acids, others from caustics, others are strength, and the variety is amazing. The fibers are infused with silicon. Now, what does that mean? There's all different types of acids, caustics, so you have to protect from that because that's what's inside that bag. The tissues in your body are varied in many, some vascular, tubing, completely impenetrable, and connective tissues are highly mineralized. Fascia was thought to be mere packing material, virtually inert. They just threw it away. It's long been ignored as a subject of research. Recently, however, there's new equipment that allows you to actually visualize a lot of stuff. And when I show you the fascia that I'm about to show you, it's going to knock your little socks from your toes. But also, I say here, fascia is a tubular, fluid-filled fabric network through your whole body. Instantly reconfigures itself if it gets damaged or pulled apart. In some cases, sometimes it gets ripped. That's different. Stretched is different. And also, stretching and all of that gives you fluidity. It makes you move easier and gives you less pain. That's what they were really looking into. The people that I was talking to, it was all about injuries. But I said, no, there's something else going on here. It's a complete fluid-filled sac. And when I talked to this guy, I think it was Werner Klinger from University of Ulm in Germany. There was a couple of them over there. But everybody else was saying it may be, they were all saying it was like fuzz. They just throw it away. However, one of these guys from Germany told me that they had found tattoo ink down in a kidney or a liver or something like that on a fascia. And I thought, wow, how would that get down there? Well, it's because of the fluid-filled highway. And anyway, it all worked out as I kept working it through. But I didn't realize how separated these organs are. And the reason they're separated by that little latch right there, there's two little dimples right in there that transfer the fluids from this latch that holds this chunk of meat in the body. That was a latch. It held it to something else, like a shoulder or something up here, so that muscle could do whatever it had to do, but it was still latched in, and that latch is tough. Right there is a tough, tough, tough spot that I talk about. And I call it the spur lock. It's another thing that's not understood. They didn't understand about this fluid-filled highway either when I started talking about it. And nobody understands about this. I'm trying to get it exposed right now. And this Dr. Tice that wrote his paper about the fascia in 2018, and maybe he'll be willing to present it. Because I know I followed what he did, because he was pretty much similar to what I was doing, to talking about the same thing. And he had a hard time presenting it. Nobody would take it. And he's a doctor. We're at New York University. So I think he presented it to 8 different places, and nobody would maybe it was 5, I can't remember. It was a bunch of different areas, journals, these special journals, or medical journals, and they're supposed to post something that should be looked into, and they refused. But finally, he did get somebody to look into it, and it was, I don't know who did it, but hold on. Anyway, this was published as an article about the interstitium, and at this point they said, well, it's something new, and can we classify it as a new organ? And if it was a new organ, it would be the biggest organ in the human body. Never was known before, up until Dr. Tice finally got this thing posted. Otherwise, nobody would know about this stuff. They deny things so easily. It's just hard to believe. I've seen this just unbelievable for 15 years. And this is the people that are supposed to be thinking, and they refuse the thought process. It's very, very disturbing. But anyway. Okay, my friend, get ready for this. This is telescopic microscopy. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you see over here? That's a telescoping microscope. And I'm going to be looking at that rock. Let me just show you what that looks like in the telescoping microscope. Well, it's very, very detailed. Now, what do we see? We're looking right at the tip here. Watch these 2 little white dots. Let me bring it up here and focus it in. You see those? Whoops. You see those 2 little white dots? That's where the fluid flows from this fascia to the next set of fascia. All right, fascia is what we're going to be talking about today. It's the biggest thing in medicine now. They've overlooked it. They just let it go by. But nobody knows about this. I literally am the only one that knows about this. The doctors don't know about it. Autopsy people, nobody at this moment. But to my way of thinking, all these organs are separated completely 100% in their own bag, and this is the only outlet for the fluids. And that's why you have so many different cancers, because there's so many different types of fluids, and each bag has its own type of fluid. That's my take on this right now. Otherwise, you'd have just one type of cancer. It could do your whole body. But no, it's per organ or per tissue type. That tells me that it's the coating that wraps around it, which is the fascia, is being invaded, which means that its specific chemistry is being invaded. Not just it can walk right through there in any organ, because you get lung cancer, you get kidney cancer, you get this, whatever it is. So that's where I'm going. Now, I'm going to show you lymph nodes in photography that is unknown. So don't forget, totally unknown photography is telescoping, and we're looking at the most tiniest structures in the body. This right here is a lymph node. All of these in a row are lymph nodes, and they're being killed. All right, now here's what a lymph node does. All of this stuff comes in from the side, which is bad stuff. And it gets filtered and cleaned up inside the lymph node, and it's supposed to come out here nice and fresh again, but it doesn't. This lymph node is dead, and it's because it's being invaded by so much toxin. It's overwhelmed its defenses. And what are the defenses? Well, it starts off with filters. You see the filters? This is a bump. These are the filters coming in to filter out the really worst stuff, so that it sort of comes in slow. But it's just being overwhelmed by so much bad stuff that it cannot survive. And neither can this one down here. It's the same structure. Same structure, just the same being killed. Because all of this orange looking stuff coming in is toxins. And where's it coming from? It's coming from right over here. You see this? That is literally a venom that's invading this tissue. And this venom is trying to be pulled away and brought over to the lymph nodes to be cleaned up. It's too much. It's just too much. It can't handle it. But something that's very interesting is that look at how much it's pouring into that. It's not like it's just laying around here like everywhere else. It's literally focusing a flood of lymph, which this isn't lymph, because it's going to the lymph nodes. And it's flooding this toxin to try to get it out of the body. That's a cooperative effort. All right, so we saw the lymph nodes being destroyed. We see the toxin invading the tissue, and we see a cooperative effort. That tells me there's some kind of intelligence there. There's some kind of intelligence there that is seeking that out because it's invading. All right, and this is all being invaded, this whole line here. That's why it's so dense with this fluid. All right, and it's trying to bring it down to the lymph nodes. They cannot handle it and they're dying. Okay, so that's the structure of a lymph node and the in and out of the lymph fluids and so forth. And inside, you have all those little webbing coming into it, which I showed you, and they die when they get overwhelmed. They're supposed to, the bad stuff's supposed to come in, get all cleaned up, and the good stuff's supposed to go back out. Well, something to happen inside there to stop it from cleaning up. What did happen? What happened inside there? What cleans it up? What comes in here, and what would clean that up before it could get back out, and why is it no longer cleaning something up? Well, we know we got toxins came in here, something really nasty. What does that do? It kills bacteria. Bacteria create the enzymes. No enzymes, it's going to overwhelm that lymph node and you're going to die. All right, membranes can indeed be considered a type of fascia, which they are. And then there's specialized fascia, which is rubber bags. This is a rubber bag. It goes because it was a lung. All right, so it's called pleura. Now, the heart has its own rubber bag because it keeps doing, well, it keeps twisting, but it needs to be very rubbery, and that's called, somewhere in there it tells you what that is. Anyway, the pericardium around the heart, that's what it is, pericardium. And that can be viewed as a specialized type of fascia, but they all protect and surround and completely encapsulate something. That's what fascia does. One way or the other. You call it a membrane, I call them basically membranes. If it's fascia, I relate it to a membrane. They say not all. It says so, while not all fascia are membranes. Well, I would like to see something that's not a membrane, it's fascia. Many membranes could be considered specialized fascia. No, whenever they coat something as a fascia is a coating. It's a membrane. We got a little problem with chat every now and then. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at this for now. This is Chat, my buddy Chat, says, yes, Roger Spur discussed fascia in a way that aligns with concept of fluid-filled network, exactly what I said it was, and highlighted unique properties in relation to Mudfossil theory, which is where all of these things stabilize. I've shown this a million times. And I got a little lost in this presentation, to be honest with you. I got interrupted a half a dozen times, so I think I've already shown this. But anyway, I claimed in 2015 its fascia is a fluid-filled system, and it gained broader scientific traction around 2018 with the work Dr. Neil Tice and his colleagues did, and they published, and they called it a possible new organ. I think I've explained all that stuff. So, the fascia is the biggest thing there is going in medicine right now. It's the biggest thing there is in medicine right now because that's where your immune system is. So yeah, I know I showed you this before too. This is Dr. John Campbell. He's racking them up. almost 20,000 hits in just a couple of hours about common mucosal system and immunity. The mucosal system is the fascia. Okay, here's what Chad has to say about bacteria. I said, are bacteria dense in membranes? Yes, bacteria can be quite dense in cell membranes. And what they're doing, that's called the phospholipid bilayer. And that's where these bacteria live. And they create ribosomes, which are the enzymes. Bacteria create enzymes that are essential proteins. They catalyze biochemical reactions within these cells and within the body. Bacteria produce enzymes to perform a range of functions such as breaking down nutrients for your food, to obtain energy, building cellular structures, bones and everything else, and protecting themselves against harmful substances, and protecting you against invasion through that membrane. That's where they live, in these membranes. And then they show anything with an ASE on the end is a enzyme, basically a catalyst. Protease, amylase, lipase, lactase, and all are enzymes that break down things or protect you. And that's what comes out of bacteria. So you need all your bacteria functioning optimally. You know, I got to be honest, I don't remember if I showed you this, but this is the blood vessels. These are arteries. These are the blood vessels that lead down to the capillaries that feed into the veins, which are black. Now, this has still got all vital components in it. You see all that stuff? It's bringing that stuff down to deliver it to the tissues that are all inside here to keep the tissues functioning. Now, they branch off. Everything has to be fed. Every single cell in your body has to have red blood. But eventually it gets used up. And after it's used up, it comes down to what they call the capillaries. And this is where it drains into the vein. Now, the veins are not like regular tubes. The veins have all kinds of holes in them. You see this? And you see all these little fibers? That is the lymph. That's the lymph. That little lymph duct stuff. Now, what happens is when the arteries dump the blood vessels and they completely use everything up, they finish off by dumping in here. Now, what happens here is the artery, the vein takes in all of the nasty stuff and brings it back to get cleaned up. But at the same time, you see areas like this? They're sucking up all of the moisture that isn't necessary to go back down, back up, to be reprocessed. So that's what the lymph is doing. These are the lymph ducts. They're very, very tiny. They're so tiny, they're just unbelievably tiny. But they're everywhere. They're everywhere in the body. And that's the thing we're talking about. And they end up going to the lymph nodes, which I showed you were killed because they were overwhelmed. But this is how the body services tissue. And once again, this is not known. Nobody's ever seen this before. This is as good as it gets. And I'll be glad to talk to some doctors about this, but if a doctor can look at this and say, oh, no, that doesn't happen in the body. Yes, it does. It's precisely what happens in the body. And those lymph nodes and the attack of the lymph, of the venom, that was pretty obvious too. So if we have a doctor in the house, is there a doctor in the house? All right, I guess I'm going to leave it where I started. This is really exciting because I've been working with people in Northern Ireland, and another good friend of mine is a triple PhD bacterial engineer. I mean, these are top shelf people, and they want to get this information out. And now I just heard from another person who has a big company that work in the microbiome area, and we're going to talk, I hope. Now, this is unveiling fascia, the role of connective tissue in pain and mental health. the fibers of the neurons and all of the different things in the brain are coated by membranes. Those membranes have to be supported by bacteria. Once you kill the bacteria for whatever reason, or if it doesn't get in there to start with, you don't have any protection. That's, you know, I'm not going to make any claims, but we have people working on a lot of stuff. I'm just going to say that. But this is very, very exciting, because then they have this one here, the documentary. The Fascia Guide here is a documentary about the web throughout our body is the fascia. Fascia documentary, network without beginning or end. You know, the crazy thing is, I put a note up here on here, but I think they took it down. Yeah, it's gone. People see me as a problem. So anyway, that's just it's what we got. I'm going to leave it at that for now. But fascia is the key. That's the key right there. This is what protects you. And it's this mucosa, fascia, whatever you want to call it. But you get down underneath there, and that's what. Well, you know what. Now, since they started looking at the fascia, finally, it says it's led to more investigation into fascia's potential role in health and disease. That's where I come in. Due to these factors, fascia is now recognized as a highly functional and integral component of the musculoskeletal system, central to movement, stability, and even the immune response. This is where I got involved, was the immune response, because I couldn't understand why some people get sick and others don't. And the only thing I could come up with was a barrier layer. It had to be. It was invasion. And when I kept thinking and thinking, I said, there's 100 types of cancers. This chemistry that coats this bag or it surrounds this organ, which was a lung, has to be something different than something that surrounds the pancreas. Because you get lung cancer means you got invaded through this tissue. Your pancreas is a different type of chemistry. It has to be, because the contents of these bags is all different. You got kidneys, you got liver, every organ is different, and every organ has its own special cancer. Why? It has to be, in my mind, an invasion of the membrane. And the membrane must, in my mind, have a special type of chemistry. And that chemistry is created by, which is enzymes and catalysts, basically. Those are the things that work fast enough to kill off everything else really quickly. You have to have the enzymes. The only way you get the enzymes is from bacteria. That's how it works. So if you don't have the right bacteria in your microbiome, then you're going to have trouble. And this is also, now is completely wide open. They're starting to fully understand the microbiome. And now I've gone a little further than that, because I fully understood that a long time ago. There is a microbiome as well. And they're starting to understand that. Viruses actually program bacteria to create new little viruses. To the programmers, right? It gets a little bit deep, but now it's starting to be understood. So what is the solution to all of this? Is to find out what bacteria live where, and how you're going to do that. You have to do autopsies on each one of these individual bags, and what is the bacteria that live in there? What's supposed to be in here? Right? And then you find out what is actually the chemistry here versus the chemistry in your pancreas and your, prostate, and all this stuff. And then you find out why all these different cancers have different invasive chemistry. That, to me, that's the bottom line. And the only way we're ever going to know is to have a complete database of what every organ has inside of it for chemistry. A healthy one versus a diseased one. If somebody comes in with lung cancer and you find out every one of them has this type of chemistry, well, why? And you're going to find out there'll probably be some different bacterial signature here, because the bacteria create the ribosomes create the enzymes create your immunity. It's basically how it works. All right, I got the bone right there in the microscope. And that spot right there, there's the wrapping comes together and it tags right in this one spot right there. All right, now let me back up and I'll show you, because they have where these little holes are. You see right here? This is where it comes together right here. And that's where it latches. You see that? That's not common, those little holes there. All right, they're only there because they're the anchor. And that triangle coming up here, right there, and right here, comes up here, anchors, and anchors here too. And I'm sure I can find where the fluid comes out of here, because that triangle has to anchor. It's got to anchor in here. And see, and actually there's there's two of them come together, and that's common. Let me focus in so we can see that better. All right, so what are we looking at? We got this coming here. That's the main one coming up to where it locks up here. But then there's another one that latches over the top and locks in. Now, do we see that in other pieces? Because right up there, this area here is where it really locks in, the big triangle. But there's another piece that comes across, you see it? And that locks in right there. So there's a double lock on this, which is the bone. Now let's look at this one here. It has the same thing, you see it? See it coming across? Same type of flap, only that one was a triangle coming up and meeting, and that one, this has the same sort of thing. You see this circular spot there? And there's where the two spots are that transition the fluid to the next organ. That's not understood, totally not understood. And don't forget, I say the spur lock is this, but it also is here, right there. That's the tough spot. That right there, my friends, is as tough gets. You see it? And you see it's overlapped. All of the fascia comes together and locks in one place to keep this organ from floating through the body. And this was just some kind of meat. That is just red, raw flesh with all the connective tissue inside of it. Now, as we go back from the latch, where the fluid's transferred, because this is all by itself. This is going to be completely encased by itself. This is just fractured and broke apart. Now, we go back, and then it starts to flare out. The fascia flares. And then it just coats the organ, in a real thin coat, which is normal fascia. But right up here, that's the connective tissue, and that's the spur lock. As I named it myself, after myself. And this circle here is another part of the spur lock. And these two tabs, the two fluid things, send this fluid from here to the next organ. Now, in my opinion, this fluid that's in here has to be different than the next organ that it's going to, or the next body part, because you have so many types of cancers. There's a couple hundred types of cancers. So every fluid has to be, because cancer's invasion through this membrane. I mean, I don't see how you can see it any other way. All right, I think I made it clear that what lives in your membranes is bacteria. And bacteria squirt out these little balls. Here's what a bacteria looks like. They're single cell. They're the tiniest thing you could ever imagine. They shoot out these little balls called ribosomes. Inside a ribosome is the enzyme. The enzyme is the catalyst. They work millions of times faster than if you didn't have that. So what we're looking at is that ribosome. What does it do? It free floats out through the body. It doesn't eat, doesn't poop, just lays around waiting to be used. And then a trigger comes and clicks it, and the sheath goes bing, and out from that little tiny ball, which is so small you can have millions of them in one cell, out comes an enzyme which is gigantic. So this ball comes out and then it goes, it gets gigantic, all like that. And now it's too big to get through the brain barrier. But the ribosomes can get through, I believe. Now, when they unsheath, they can create either an enzyme or a protein or literally a virus. And these are the different things. Enzymes break things, proteins build things. It came out of the same place, but from a different bacteria. Now, there's also viruses. That when that ball comes out, instead of breaking things or making things, it says, I want you to reprogram. So it gets into more bacteria and says, I'm reprogramming you. It's a programmer to make more of me and go out and infect more of those cells. That's what a virus is. It's a, they say, make some more, and then they start making, and if you don't have anything to come in and say, whoa, no, you ain't going nowhere. That's what you need, is some guys to come in and do that. And you should have tons of guys, because what do you have? You have an entire fluid-filled network of your whole body. There's 4 times more lymph fluids in your body than there is blood. All right, just think about that. And you saw how they invaded as a mass. You should never get invaded. If your lymph fluid has the bacteria and the enzymes in it to do the job, there's so much of it, you should never get invaded. You got more guys than anybody. But once you don't have the bacteria, and what kills the bacteria? A lot of things. A lot of things. And I have a whole list of them. I'm not going to talk about them here because they don't like me talking about anything like that, because I'm not a doctor. So, but I am a researcher, and I only talk about research, and I never give any advice to do anything. So I'm going to leave it at that for today. But this is the most important thing in your whole body now, is this fluid-filled highway, because that's your immune system. And if you don't have the right bacteria in there creating the right enzymes, you're open for invasion. All right, and there is literally thousands and thousands of different types of bacteria, and every one of them creates something different. They're there to do a job. I'm telling you, it's a web of life like I never even could have imagined. But now I've started to really look deep at everything, and I believe every one of these organs has its own type of chemistry, and that's why you get all these different cancers. Because once that chemistry isn't right, you're open for invasion of that particular organ. All right, I love you all.